Welcome to Teaching Truth. My name is Glenn Cartwright. Have you lost heart? Are you ready for giving up? Do you want to throw in the towel? Well, today I want to bring you a word of encouragement from the letter that Paul wrote to the church at Corinth, 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 7 to 10, and to encourage you not to give up in relation to your circumstances. We read these words, "But we have this treasure in jars of clay, to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body." We're described in verse 7 of this passage by Paul as ordinary jars of clay in which God places his treasure. Clay jars or clay pots can be bought for next to nothing in most marketplaces today, and the image that Paul has in his mind is of going to a market in a place such as Corinth and buying a piece of pottery worth, well, no more than pennies. So what's the significance in his describing us in this way? Well, the outward clay represents our vulnerable lives, as a clay pot is easily broken. And so what Paul is saying is that we have the treasure of God inside our vulnerable and fragile lives. Like a clay pot or jar when dropped, we can go into different pieces. We can crumble emotionally. We can feel anxiety and sadness and grief. And we can lose heart easily in relation to our circumstances. And if you think you're Superman or Wonder Woman, well, you have a bigger image of yourself than God's word here wants you to have. God made us this way because, as his word says, that the all-surpassing, the extraordinary power would then be seen to be from God and not from us. If we became like Superman or Wonder Woman, the world would not find it easy to believe. But the fact that it's through our vulnerability, our fragility, and our humanity, our clay-pottedness, if you like, that God works, makes the difference. My Sunday school teacher in Carluke Baptist Church, a man by the name of Ian McCulloch, was one who many people thought couldn't do very much. He was an invalid, having had polio in earlier years. A very ordinary clay jar, as it were, on the shelf, and yet without fail each Sunday he taught his little Sunday school class. And from vulnerability and humility from that very ordinary clay jar, God worked and years later brought forth treasure. Look at the words Paul uses to describe the clay jar of our lives. We're hard-pressed, we're perplexed, we're persecuted, we're physically and emotionally done, we feel forsaken. And there are times when we do feel like this. But because we have the treasure of Christ within us, we don't need to lose heart. Because greater is he that is in us than he who is in the world. We have a God of the immeasurably more. And that would be, and that is the testimony of my now almost bedbound Sunday school teacher. Humanly, all of these things, feeling hard pressed, feeling down, forsaken, but spiritually a man full of the treasure of God who has never lost heart. Verse 10 is linked to the death of Jesus, and what I mean by referring to that is if you simply want to live, as it were, a life of resurrection, well, you can't, because that's not God's way. You cannot have the resurrection of Jesus without the death of Jesus. Hard pressed is like dying, but never crushed is like resurrection. Perplexed is like dying, but never to the point of despair. Resurrection. We're persecuted, dying, but never abandoned. Resurrection. Struck down, death, but never destroyed. Resurrection. You see, we have many reasons when Christ, the treasure, is within the clay jar of our lives, not to lose heart. For Christ is made perfect. Where? In our weakness. I read a message this week which a pastor wrote, and it was a very honest and vulnerable message to write. It speaks for itself. He wrote, "So often folk assume that leaders in general and pastors in particular just keep going, never get discouraged and just bounce back when folk hurt them, forget them, attack them, or talk about them behind their back. Like every other pastor and leader I know, I get tired, discouraged and disheartened. This pandemic has taken so much out of so many of us. I'm wearied by it. Its impact on my family, my church, my community, my nation and my world. I don't want it to hurt anyone else. I'm tired of hearing about people that I love getting the virus. I'm tired of burying people who have died because of it. I'm also tired of hearing people say it's all a scam. I'm tired of hearing and seeing folk who refuse to hear and see the pain that others are facing. I'm discouraged by the actions and the words of folk who tell you that they are with you, then hurt you. Folk who tell you that they love being part of your community of faith, then disappear. I'm wearied by the absence of good manners, decency and honesty, of those who simply ditch you when they feel like it without a thank you or an explanation. I'm sad when I see and hear leaders use words about integrity, honesty and biblical faithfulness in the pulpit but avoid talking to you, run you down and engage in private criticisms. I am tired of people talking about friendship but actually not being friends, and of so much of the pretense of what is claimed to be church and fellowship. But I am not tired of Jesus. I am not tired of beautiful community. I am not tired of the wonder of working with great colleagues, serving a great church. I am not tired of preaching, teaching, worshipping, praying, praising and serving. I am not tired of authenticity, honesty and vulnerability. I am not tired of hope. I am not tired of faith. I am not tired of being a Christian. I am not tired of our church. I am not tired of the gospel. I'll get out of bed and plod on, knowing that Jesus is worth it all and his people are the apple of his eye, being part of this beautiful, broken, fragile and fragrant community. I will rise tomorrow believing that God defeats cynicism, criticism, hurt, sorrow, fear, disappointment, death, discouragement and darkness. God defeats division, deceitfulness and empires. God wins, and that makes all the difference in everything. Friends, find today, find this week in your vulnerability and in your honesty and in your fragility the treasure of the resurrection and of Jesus Christ in your life.